All right, GBA, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everyone to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals work session for October 11th, 2022. Right off the bat, we have an administrative application. I'll read that into the record, and that is Michael Palladino at 124 Old Westlake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-20-5-7. And the description is to remove all existing structures and to construct a new 3,000 square foot two-story residence with 498 square foot attached garage, a 1,076 square foot of decking and porches, a 396 square foot swimming pool, pool equipment, fencing, driveway, and new sanitary system on a parcel of land containing wetlands. And Tyler is here this evening. And Tyler, you want to run us through it?
Sure. So this front on, here, let me pull up the aerial, Lake Montauk. There was an existing house there. I think it had a fire. Yes. Yeah, it had a fire and they tore the whole house down. And so they're in for a new residence now. The new residence is around 3,000 square feet. Swimming pool, it's all roughly the same. I don't know if you can see this gray outline. That's where the existing residence was. So roughly the same footprint as the existing structures, 1,000 square feet of decking roughly, swimming pool, driveway, and sanitary system. The applicants were okay with a revegetation around the edge of wetlands. So you have wetlands here, as well as obviously tidal wetlands of Lake Montauk. So the applicants agreed to do some revegetation along that. So we're happy with the mitigation that's being provided for the project as proposed.
Is there a scenic easement?
Not existing, I don't believe so.
Are they offering them?
No existing scenic easement. Project pretty far away from there. Plus the revegetation, we were okay with what they were offering at this point, or what they were comfortable with doing.
Do you recall in the last Lake Montauk thing application if we asked for a scenic easement or if there was one against the lake?
It's really project by project what we.
I'm just trying to be consistent. Yeah.
This is set back pretty far from the tidal wetland side of things. I mean, they're 100 feet away from these freshwater wetlands that are further inland. The tidal wetland side, they're 200 or 300 feet.
And essentially, this is almost like a replacement in kind, right? Except for
it is larger than what was there, gross floor area wise, but it's roughly the same area as the previous one.
And how big is the lot?
Lot area is 42,914 square feet.
Are there any other conditions relative to the new structure that's being proposed that we should know about? Is it going to change elevation? Is it going to have a second story where it was one story before or anything like that?
I believe the previous was a two-story. Right, and I think did it have two garages? Yeah. It had two garages, like a U shape, had like a garage on either side.
Right.
So it was obviously a different building, but roughly the same location as what's being proposed.
A similar visual impact on the neighborhood.
I would imagine, yeah.
I can't see that well. Where's the fencing? Is it just around the pool? Doesn't go all the way down to the water?
No, yeah, wouldn't be able to because it would require a variance.
Right, okay.
I mean, on the face of it, I don't have a problem with it. Does anybody?
I haven't got a problem with it. It sounds like if it's being done in kind and you're comfortable with it, meaning the planning department, then
Somewhere in there,
follow your
42,000.
lead on this.
It's okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm good, but yeah, I'm
All
fine.
right, we're okay.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Joel. All right, moving on. We have post-hearing decisions. The first one we have is Patrick DeMarcellier at 15 Island Road in East.
You want
What's that?
Ed to make a motion? We don't need a motion?
Oh,
Yes,
you do need a motion. I thought, yeah, this is, so Ed, maybe you can make a motion.
Then in the case of Michael Palladino, 124 Old Westlake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-020-05-7, I'd like to make a motion to allow this application to proceed administratively.
Second?
Concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. All right, the first post-hearing decision is Patrick D. Marcellier at 15 Island Road in East Hampton, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-93-3-9. The size and location is 22,000 square foot at 15 Island Road in Hampton Waters, Section 1, map number 2799 in East Hampton. The description is to allow approximately 192 square foot of decking and a children's playhouse constructed within wetland setbacks to remain on a parcel of land containing wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, a variance from 255-440 minimum wetland setbacks, and any other relief necessary from the town code. The wetland setbacks variances of 16.8 feet and 39.9 feet are required to allow the deck and playhouse to remain 83.2 feet and 60.1 feet respectively from wetlands where 100-foot setback is required. The zoning district is B residence EE flood zone elevation 6, and the secret class is type 2. This was in my jurisdiction, so if you don't mind, I'll shut it off. It's important to note where this his property is. It's on the peninsula of Island Road, and it's in the southern part of 3 Mile Harbor. The waters there are very prone to stagnation. The TAM calls it, this portion of the harbor is subject to a permanent shellfish closures due to high coliform bacteria concentrations, an indicator of poor water quality and pollution. So I think it's important to understand that the property owner has 3 contiguous properties surrounding it, and over the years they have increased the clearing on not only this property, but the other properties. And during the hearing, if you remember, we were questioning whether or not we do have kind of jurisdiction on the other properties. It's disheartening to find out that this clearing has increased. I think for the purpose of the zoning board, we can only talk about this property because that's before us. But I do want to make that note that from my perspective, and I'm sure the rest of you, that the additional clearing on the other properties is disheartening, especially in waters with problems as this particular property has. Before us as well is two structures. One is a deck. The agent to the applicant, Rick Whalen, referred to the deck when there was a ZBA decision in 2005 that stipulated that they went to an increase on the deck. It also established the clearing at that point at 16,240 square feet. That deck was constructed, and during the construction of that deck, they had reconfigured the stairs on the deck, and the applicant, Rick, oops, hold on. The agent to the applicant talked, one of the reasons why they reconfigured the deck is because there was a tree there, and they built the deck, the stairs, they moved the stairs, so it increased the deck, I think 140 something feet. Oh, I got that. 112.5 feet, square feet. I don't have a problem with the deck as it stands. And I think it is minor. The planning department also took a position on that these were minor requests. The second structure is a shed or a playhouse and the applicants placed playhouse there for, as to be able to see the playhouse from the second story. That was the reasoning for it. It's built without benefit of the permit. It's subsequent to the 2005 decision. I think we can distress. I think if you look at the variance standards, there is definitely alternative locations for this where where it doesn't need to seek a variance. The most important thing here, to me, is the fact that this property is overcleared. The applicant will be revegetating it up to the 2005 decision of 16,240, requiring him to be 44,330 square feet of revegetation. Time of the hearing, and the TAM, Brian, the planning department was pretty clear about the revegetation plan that was presented for the hearing by Pete Grimes was not adequate for this area. So the decision was to keep the record open until a revegetation plan was agreed to with the planning department. We do have that revegetation plan now, and I am assuming that it does conform with the planning department. With that, I think I would recommend just approving the revegetation plan, still contingent on as a condition of their building permit, that the planning department does sign off it, because I don't know if we have a formal sign off yet on it. I haven't seen it. So with that, I approve it. I'd like to keep maybe the discussion open with the playhouse. I think it can be moved. The applicant did say that it was built on blocks, so it should be relatively easy to move. Yeah. And I would like to see it brought into a conforming location, especially for a sensitive piece of property as this is. So with that, anybody else wants to go?
I'll go.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm so much in agreement with what our chairman has had to say that I don't have a lot to add. I agree that my thinking went along the very, very same lines. To start with the two variances, I thought that given the conditions as they were surrounding the deck being too large and the offering of the re-veg plan, I'm perfectly happy with approving the deck. However, when it comes to the small building, this playhouse, I think that it does look like it's not a very big job to move it, and there are other more conforming locations. So I would agree that I would not want to approve it, leaving it in the same location. I'd like to see them find a spot that can make it more conforming or make it conforming, period. I think that's important. But I do think that the all the reaction of the planning department, and it was a very strong statement from Brian Frank about the overclearing. I think we all were impressed with the amount it was overcleared and knew that something had to be done. We even questioned whether or not we could ask them to go back beyond what the 16,240 square foot that was part of the 2005 approval at that time. When we told we're not, at least what we're going to get is back to that, down from the 20,570 that's currently cleared. So that additional 4,330 feet represents some market progress. Now, at that time, as was pointed out again by the chair, Jim Grimes' plan was deemed to be inadequate by the judgment of Brian Frank, and that 9/30 of September 30th, we did get a re-veg plan that addressed this issue and was an improvement. I would only say because I did not anyway, see that we got a positive reaction from the planning department of approval for this, that we condition this approval based on the fact that the planning department will sign off of their now newly proposed re-veg plan. I think it's important. I think the issue of the adjoining lots is one that, we know that we have a legal limitation here, but I think it's important we all come around to understanding just how important this is. It was pointed out by the chair, this is not only a sensitive area, but an area that responds pretty quickly to what's going on these lots. It's too close not to be in effect. And the fact that they are so seriously overcleared is of great concern for us. Now, we can't move on that tonight, but I think it's important for us to to at least press the applicant in this case to consider doing what should be done to bring these lots in closer into both compliance and into common sense usage in terms of the environment around them. So in short, I mean, granting the NRSP standards at 255-4-20, are we doing the best we can for this lot, given the proposal from the client? And will that allow us to then approve an NRSP here? I think the additional 4,330 feet, if properly revegetated, is a very positive move here towards trying to do some protection for the adjacent wetlands. And so I'm willing to approve the NRSP on that basis. And as I previously said, I'm willing to approve the deck, but ask that the playhouse be moved to a conforming location.
Joe?
I wasn't part of the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Denise?
Okay, well, at the risk of repeating ourselves, I completely agree with Chairman Deline and Vice Chairman Johan. I also too took note that Island Road, as noted in the TAM, is a peninsula within the head of the harbor area of 3 Mile Harbor. This portion of the harbor is subject to permanent shellfish closings due to high coliform bacteria concentrating an indicator of poor quality and pollution. The revegetation plan revised was submitted due to the extensive clearing that has taken place. I would like to see it reviewed by the planning department and signed off on before the issuance of a building permit. I did a little background with the deck. I was confused at first because the 2005 decision actually approved a 320, here's my decision,
23.
323 square foot deck. And I had to realize that there was also an additional 650 foot deck already there. So this is a relatively minor change which occurred, and it will not really create an undesirable change in the neighborhood. The extra decking and the pavers are not visible by any neighbors. The playhouse, however, can be, I believe, in a more conforming location. So it is not the minimum necessary for grant of this variance, and not such a good ask where a 100-foot setback is required. So I'm approving the decking, but I'm not denying the playhouse location.
You are.
I am sorry, I am denying the playhouse because I think it can be in a more conforming location.
Terry?
Thank you.
Okay, well, I agree with my fellow board members. I will reiterate Brian Frank's strong statements at the hearing about the head of harbor, vulnerable wetlands need to be protected, the habitat protection, and we need these buffers. That this was a diminished natural area, and the applicant is fully aware of the wetland destruction that they had wreaked on it and the overclearing. I also agree that the decking is a smaller ask, and the variance on that being 16.8 feet is small, and I'm willing to approve the decking variance. Back to the playhouse also, I'm totally in denial or denying the variance for the playhouse. It's 39.9 feet, and while the planning department was not strongly against it, I think that is a very large one. Plus, with the re-veg plan, the playhouse is almost in that revegetation area. The re-veg plan we got, they show 4,367 square feet on it, and I agree. I will approve the NRSP because they will be increasing this. Hopefully, this remains as such once it's done, and also that this is contingent on the planning department's blessing of the new re-veg plan. Playhouse has to go.
Thank you.
And also maybe add that the re-veg be implemented prior to the issuance of a CO, just to have it in there. I'm
Yes.
sure that's standard language, but I just want to make sure this actually gets done.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on.
Farm?
We have Talmadge Farm LLC. Sounds like you're itching to get to this.
No, I just. I said it as a question.
We have Talmadge Farm
We have
LLC.
Talmadge Farm
I have to
LLC.
Yeah, I'll read it into the record. At 464 Old Stone Highway, Amagansett, at Suffolk Tax Map number 300-103-2-11.2. The size and location is 94,231 square feet at 464 Old Stone Highway in Amagansett. The description is to allow a 39.75 square foot shed, a 57.34 square foot dovecote, and a 55 square foot pergola to remain on the property respective of to side yard and pyramid setbacks. Relief sought, 5 variances are required. Variances 18.2 feet, 4.5 feet, and 18.4 feet are required from 255 to 1110 dimensional setbacks to allow a shed at 1.8 feet, a dovecote 15.5 feet, and a pergola 1.6 foot from the southern, northern, and western side yards where 20 foot is required. Variances of 83 cubic feet and 374.6 cubic feet are required from 255-11-72D to allow a shed and pergola to remain within the town's pyramid setbacks and any other relief necessary from East Hampton Town Code. The zoning district is A2 residence, Zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. Bill?
The public hearing was held on this matter on September 13th, and the survey reference was that of George Walbridge dated September 2nd, 2020. It's a large property with an odd shape. There's the 3 structures at issue. The dovecote testimony was that it was built in 84. The pergola was built in about 92, but that's not entirely clear. And the shed was built in 89. The structures are located in what was originally the Judith and Gerson Lieber Gardens. Judith was a renowned designer of ornamental handbags, and there's now a museum in the adjacent to this property, or it abuts this property of her handbags. And Gerson was a painter and sculptor, and his works are also shown in this museum. The museum is at 446 Old Stone Highway, and it abuts the property. I think I said that already. The applicant acquired the property in 2020. 2 letters of support were issued. One from the neighbors at 201 Neck Path to the south, not objecting to the shed, and 189 Neck Path to the northwest, not objecting to the dovecote. The dovecote was captured in Ken Drews's photo collection at the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian catalog described the property as featuring, quote, a woodland modeled on English parks, swimming pool, dovecote, and other sculptures throughout garden rooms, close quote. The applicant argued that all the structures were designed by the Liebers and should be judged in that context. In terms of the balancing test, the applicant argued the primary benefit was to preserve the provenance that existed without incident for decades, and that there's a broader relationship of the 3 structures to the property. And we should focus on the totality of the circumstances. Certainly, I agree that there doesn't appear to be a detriment to nearby properties. The alternatives are demolishing or relocating. Obviously, the shed could be relocated. And I'll talk about the pergola in a minute. There doesn't appear to be an impact on the environment. It is self-created, but they were created in good faith. And I think I'll talk about the structures now. With respect to the dovecote, it clearly was in the Smithsonian pictures, and it is unique. It was referred to in the 95 CO, and the variance of 4.5 feet is minimal for preservation of the structure. I'm open to discussion on the issue of that there's mature vegetation blocking the dovecote from the neighbor, but that would weigh it would weigh against granting it because the blocking of the structure is actually in the hands of the neighbors. I would, if we approve it, I would make a condition that it be non-habitable space. With respect to the shed, the primary attribute seems to be that it is so overgrown that by vegetation that it appears to be completely camouflaged. Yet we've made others move structures like garages seeking variances of this degree. And it troubles me to say that the shed can be moved because it literally is going to have to be dug out of the its placement. But I'm open to discussion on that. But I do think that this property is sufficiently large that it could be moved. The one that caused me trouble was the pergola. It's not in the Smithsonian pictures, but the structural elements incorporate the architectural vernacular of the garden. This being a sort of outdoor room in a corner of a shade garden, and it appears to be in keeping with the Lieber's vision for the garden. So I lean towards approving it if it's to be restored, but I would make a condition perhaps that as attached to the CO, a sketch of the pergola as it is be attached so it's clear what is being preserved. But I'm open to discussion on that because the variances are somewhat substantial.
Ed?
Okay, I think this is an interesting one, and partly because on the surface, it's pretty obvious that we have a number of variances here, and I think the one that's the most significant are the pyramid variances, the 255-11-72D, because we have a history here of being pretty stringent about how we interpret our approvals of any kind of pyramid variance. These are on the property line and not too distant past. We've turned down sheds that have been on a property line because of the pyramid variance. However, it's a very unique site in a lot of ways, and that makes it complicated as well. It's extremely overgrown. It's very, very well protected. Many of the things seem to be incorporated very almost seamlessly into the architecture and the layout of the gardens. And so from that point of view, artistically, this is a piece of property, and these are three elements that seem to go and belong exactly where they sit. However, we still have to face up to the fact that we have codes to follow, and what does that mean in this particular case? It's complicated in terms of the screening because, as was pointed out just now, the primary screening for this property is not on this parcel. It's on the adjacent parcel, so that we cannot do anything about controlling that at this time. If those parcels were to come up, we could talk about it from some other viewpoint, but that's not for us to make a decision tonight. So theoretically, that property could be cleared in some way, or some of that could come down. And then this invisible dovecote, these invisible factors that sit there in a place that are not seen by anyone now, could become a potential factor. I think the most problematic of me, although the other two have the pyramid issues, is the shed. The shed looks as if it'll hardly survive a renovation. It's certainly been through an awful lot, but it does have a electrical service in it. The electrical service is going to be a certain amount to move for the individuals. Now, this property is not, for all the talk of its historical significance, came into the hands of the current owner in 2020. So at that point, whatever assessment they must have made in deciding to buy this, they should have, if they weren't, they should have been advised that all three of these, if they move forward in the future, would come under scrutiny by this board and the building department. All of that makes it, for me, a complicated one simply because I find it so aesthetically pleasing. I think when I'm looking at the dovecote, which is, we pointed out, I think the chair pointed out, it's the first time in his memory that's come in front of this board to discuss a dovecote. And I think that's probably true. And it's a very interesting and it's a unique kind of structure. And I like what it looks like, and I like what it means, and I like what it represents architecturally. I can say the same thing about the pergola. The pergola is also a portion of this that I could very highly recommend to want to see maintained. But what do we do about our reaction to the codes that are the building codes? I mean, the setbacks that we should be respecting. So where does that leave us? For me personally, you can't rely long-term on the protection, although I can't imagine that it's in anyone's advantage to remove that. So a future house on another lot might not. The problem is we can't predict that, and we just don't know that, so we lose control of it. Very much felt like I wanted to approve this, but I don't know how with the pyramid and the fact that we cannot in any way protect it visually because all these structures are right on property lines that they can go ahead and do it. So although I'm very sympathetic to them and I like what I see aesthetically, I'm going to deny this application based on the fact that the codes that we are asked to defend in this case are pretty obvious. And although that it's a very aesthetic and a very attractive property, and that I think that it's extremely well protected at this point, I don't know, it's been pointed out by other board members in the past, and these decisions are in perpetuity. And so we have to think about what might be happening someplace down the line. Property and new ownership could also come in front of us for additional work in the future. So there could be many other changes that we can't predict. So I'm going to rely back more heavily than I thought I might on the code and deny this application, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay. I went through much of that, but didn't take me as long to reach a conclusion. Let me say that. Okay, so for me, I hear it is beautiful and all, but this is a new owner. The shed and the pergola both are extremely huge variances. They're almost 100% variance and top of the pyramid variance. And as this board knows, very recently, we had a shed on a property line at a house, and that was denied that it could remain. So for those two things, the pergola and the shed, I am looking to deny it. I think the variances are extremely large. There are other locations. The property is over 2 acres, and they can certainly relocate both of those. I don't see anything even that aesthetically about the pergola or the shed at all. And the perpetuity of our variances is always in my mind. The pergola side, where there is a private ownership of the adjacent on the adjacent property over there, this was one that did not get a letter of support. It didn't get a letter in opposition either. But so for the pergola and the shed, I'm going to deny those variances. On the dovecote, it's a 15.5, right, variance on that. 4.5, I'm sorry, 4.5 variance. Because of the type of structure, it is rather unique. So I was leaning toward approving it, but I don't know, can we condition that on if the dovecote ever fell apart, or that it could not be reconstructed?
The issue, and maybe we'll hear some more from Denise and myself, but I think the dovecote, as was mentioned, was is already part of a C of O in history. So it was C of O'd on one of the previous C of Os. So I think we have to weigh that. But I think we should continue discussing
Okay,
it.
let's continue discussing it. That's where I am on it.
Okay.
Denise.
Can I just ask a question? I thought the pergola was abutting the property that's the museum.
That's on the north side. On the other side, I guess, what would that be, east?
Maybe I
Says
have my
there's a private-
directions
He did
mixed up.
say there was a private owner.
Yeah,
John Huber.
Okay.
Huber.
all right,
Huber.
my mistake. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. The current owners of this property took possession in 2020. The most recent CO was issued in 1995, and the shed and the pergola are not on it. The pigeon coop is listed on the 95 CO, however, it was smaller in size than what now exists, and it was farther from the side yard. Although there was no neighbor opposition, these decisions do run with the land, and we're charged with enforcing the town code and deciding whether or not the application is in compliance with the variance standards of 255-850. There are adjoining residential properties that can be impacted by grant of these variances in a negative way. There is room on this 94,231 square foot lot to locate the structures in a conforming location. So for these reasons, I am denying this application.
Okay, thank you. My taking of it was when the applicant to the agent, John Huber, was asking us to look at this objectively in the sum of its as a whole, and in context with the family that built it. And for me, asking that objective viewpoint almost causes us to be subjective in our decision. So I'm not comfortable with doing that. I think that often in cases like this, we look for uniqueness that allows us to approve something. If we don't see that uniqueness, I don't think we can approve it. Now, the only thing I can think of uniqueness, and I'm not really clear on the contiguous property with the museum. I think if there's a museum is abutting or contiguous with this property, that might present itself to some uniqueness into approving the structure that is affected there. However, the fact that we have almost 100% variance requests on some of these structures, I don't think a neighbor's letter of support rises to that level of approval. So Tyler, I don't know, are you clear?
Yeah, I'm pulling up the GIS right now to see
So
if
the Lieber collection, I was drawing on the survey. The Lieber collection is up here where it's like north of the pergola. On that property line, there's the Lieber collection. I take that to be the museum. And the property right here where the pergola
As
is
a different neighbor.
has a different neighbor and private
Oh.
ownership, and they did not have a letter of support. Like I said, they didn't oppose it either, so they were neutral.
And so we're, again, that,
This is a new owner. I mean,
I agree.
there are other things that are probably going to go on this
Yeah.
property.
I fail to see any uniqueness then
Yeah.
in these requests to go to that level. With that, I will also deny the application.
Can I just ask, how do you reconcile the dovecote was clearly in the Smithsonian pictures that go back to the late 80s.
Yeah,
So-
pictures. There's
goes
nothing
back-
historic about it.
No,
though.
but
Well, the only thing there-
what
the
I'm
only
saying
thing-
is
No,
what I was trying to
that's a
say,
good point.
what I
That's
was
a good point.
trying to articulate is that the picture of the dovecote in the Smithsonian catalog appeared to be the same to me, even though on the CO it's drawn in as a pigeon coop. Its placement seemed to be the same.
Well, no. was smaller in size than 95,
But not,
And it now
not in terms of the pyramid. I think,
and it now exists.
no
It was
pyramid.
farther from the side yard in
Huh?
There's no
95.
pyramid.
Yes, there is.
Dovecot.
Yes, there is.
No.
oh, no,
No,
there isn't.
no.
No, there's,
No,
sorry.
No, there is not.
It's
They're
a
only
side
asking
yard
for-
variance of
Side yard.
4.5
5.
feet.
It's
That's
a
why I was
small
willing that we
variance.
need
So they
to
made
do
it
that.
bigger though and put it closer to the side yard. That's what I had an issue with.
See, that I don't have in the record.
So it's in the TAM. It's in our technical analysis memo.
But I will say that,
But she didn't have the benefit of the Smithsonian pictures.
Who?
Laney.
No, this was Brian, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Brian.
I don't
It's
know.
Brian.
Brian.
If you go through the variance standards, 255, 850,
Yeah.
that's what should determine what we do here.
Yeah,
And that's what I based my decision on. Whether the grant of the variance will create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, or will it create a detriment to nearby properties? Yes, there are adjoining residential properties that can be impacted. Whether the benefit can be sought by another method feasible. Yes, there are more conforming locations on this property. And whether the difficulty causing the applicant to request this variance was self-created. Yes, it was. So when I look at these three standards, that's the only thing that guides me.
mhm.
I just want to say that I'm going to apologize for this, but I did read over my own note when just summarizing. And I have to back up a little bit on the Dovecote because my question was, can we actually deny the Dovecote because it was on the 95 C of O? And I should have said that, but I didn't because I was looking at the thing as its entirety. But if the Dovecote's on the 95 C of O, I realize there's been some addition to it since then, but if it was on the 95 C of O, that means that previously the town of East Hampton has approved its existence.
But
Well,
they
not
approved a
location
different
necessarily.
size and a different location.
Mhm.
It was smaller in size than what exists now, and it's farther from the side yard. So what exists now is closer to the side yard and bigger than what's on that CO.
Where
Where are we?
if we were to give special consideration to a piece of property, there are properties carved out in the town code that are part of the town code that is carved out by the town board, by legislative processes. And although this has some important aspects of who it is and all that, the Lieber family, but it's not carved out specially. So I don't think we can give it special consideration in that
Mm.
regard.
I agree. We can't.
No, I agree with you.
It's not historic. It's not some,
Gave this a tremendous amount of thought.
someone else has just purchased it.
So where
who
are we
knows
now?
what will happen.
Well,
I'm going to stick with my denials,
I am too.
except that I'm open to discussion about the Dovecote because I did make a note to want to have the question of what happened with the
That's-
95.
That's the
CFO.
one that bothers me the most.
I'm gonna,
Having seen the
yeah.
Smithsonian pictures.
Yeah, I'm going to stand by
Yeah.
what I just said, because of the change in the size of the Dovecote. That was literally done on their own.
And without the benefit of a
Right.
building permit.
Correct.
Okay.
I will stand behind mine too, so that would, we have a 4-1 for you,
I'm denying the
No.
shed and the
or approving
pergola,
the Dovecote,
but I would approve the
but that's
Dovecote.
correct.
Just because the Smithsonian pictures to me look like what it is
Great.
today.
Teresa, I had you down for approving the Dovecote. You denied it as well?
No, I'll approve the Dovecote.
All right, so then the Dovecote is a 3-2 vote for denial.
Yep,
Yep.
sounds good. All right,
Yes.
move on. Next, we have Miller Brothers Hospitality LLC at 28 Maidstone Park Road in Spring, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-38-4-22.1. The size and location is 6,899 square feet. at 28 Maidstone Park Road, Maidstone Acres, Section A, Block A, lots 1 through 3, file 62531 in Springs. The description is an appeal of the building inspector's determination dated March 28, 2022. The relief sought is an appeal of the principal building inspector pursuant to 255-835A1 of the Town Code. Appellants seek to challenge the determination finding that catering businesses on site represent additional uses. The zoning district is NB, neighborhood business, Zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And this is in Denise's neighborhood, so.
Thank you. Okay, this is a 6,899 square foot lot. The zoning district is neighborhood business. The first public hearing was scheduled for August 2nd, 2022. It was canceled due to neighbors not being noticed. The second public hearing was scheduled for August 23rd, and I believe it was canceled because their counsel was not available. The third public hearing did take place on September 13th, 2022. The appeal was represented by Mr. Lahadamis, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Lahadamis and Hillen LLP. My narrative tonight is going to be very brief because based on the testimony I heard on September 13th, the issue before us is very, very narrow in scope. We are just here to address the number of uses and whether or not we agree or disagree with our principal building inspector, Ann Glennon's determination. Mrs. Glennon was in attendance and spoke the night of the public hearing. Her interpretation of Code Section 255-245, in parentheses, 2, number of uses, allows for 2 permitted uses. Her interpretation of that has not changed since August 17th, 2021, when a letter was provided to the property owner regarding this determination. To this day, they are still providing services for Hampton Clam Bake and Food and Company, which provides different menus, preparation, and additional items that are not part of the restaurant Rita Cantina. Presently, the property contains a restaurant and a residence. It is the building's inspector's determination that the 2 catering businesses will allow for 2 more additional uses to the property since they are not part of the existing restaurant. In conclusion, I am in agreement with the building inspector's determination, and I am voting to uphold that interpretation.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. I too will cut to the chase. I too am upholding the building inspector's determination on that. As she testified at the hearing, there were the 2 uses, the restaurant and the residence. And when she researched this and found that they were catering different foods and preparation than those served at the restaurant, different businesses with different foods, each of those additional companies, Food & Co. and the Hampton Clam Bake, each would be an additional principal use. There was a lot of discussion on the applicant challenging that decision, about other food services and catering and all that. However, I think ultimately at the bottom line, I think the town code does allow for other methods. They may not be catering. It's 1993 was when the number of uses and uses in districts came about. And subsequent to that, there were updates made in 2005, I believe it was, and then subsequent to 2015. Now, as we know, things change over time. Uses change over time. But I am upholding her decision. I believe the spirit of the laws when the town board enacted them back in those other years also allowed for something to come in front of the board or the building inspector and this board then that if it wasn't listed specifically in the use table, that there are other methods that an applicant could make to sort of appeal their project and what they want to do. It was mentioned in the TAM and by the planner, Eric Chance, that the use that they could apply as a multiple business complex. There are the rules that apply, so maybe the tiny size of the lot at under 7,000 square feet might impact that, but there are other alternatives, and I actually think the town board that in doing the code was
Prescient.
really was prescient. Yes, that's the word I was trying to think of. It was prescient in that they did allow for other methods as opposed to challenging the building inspector's decision. And other thing. Oh, and there was a lot of talk also during the hearing. They kept referring to the uses as being pre-existing non-conforming. And clearly the building inspector, when she got up, corrected that those uses are not pre-existing non-conforming. It is the lot that is pre-existing non-conforming. So the C of O has the resident in the house. And I didn't find any real substance, not substance, but any real evidence that the town code as it stands and the decision of the building inspector was not correct. I am totally in favor of upholding her decision.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this one was a hearing that took us quite a long time. There was a lot of conversation, and some of it was based on some semantics back and forth about what constituted a second use within a property. Do other restaurants operate in a similar fashion but have not been singled out? How is this different? I just want to go through a couple of things that struck me at that time. The site conditions at this particular location, from going back for many years, this has been a restaurant under different names, has always been slightly problematic because there is no official parking there. People park in the right-of-ways of both, Maidstone Park Road, Fanning Avenue, and Richardson Avenue. And it's always been a problem, particularly in summers when Maidstone Park is in use and people are coming and going to the beach. However, what we see now is we've been adding additional traffic to this site due to the additional usage that is created with the additional usage has created a crisis in traffic and congestion. The restaurant seating capacity is just 76, and there's 76 people. Currently, we also had a question about whether outside dining has increased that. So without any catering leaving the site, coming and going, we already have a condition within this neighborhood, this residential neighborhood, that has always been slightly difficult for them to navigate, for people in the area to navigate and to coexist with. So the catering trucks were brought up a number of times, and what is the impact on the site? And when we start looking at what's going on relative to the long history of this place, that was pointed out by various sources here and pointed out in the TAM, this additional catering trucks coming and going have added to traffic, have added to some certain amount of congestion. There's also associated additional equipment that comes with this potential outside business, this catering business. And all of that factors into part of what's gone on in terms of its impact on the neighborhood, but it still doesn't answer whether or not this is additional usage on the property. Now, the applicant did provide or apply for a site plan, was proposed and then withdrawn in 2021. But I think it's important, and it was brought up by Member Berger, that a mechanism exists within the town. The multiple business complex special permit could have been applied for here, and it's an out. And I think, as she pointed out, the town board in the past has looked at this potential coming our way and how would it be dealt with. Well, there was a particular outing for that thing to go. The chief building inspector ruled that the current activity level at the restaurant represents a second illegal use of the property, and so is in violation of 255-8-35A, Section 1. which would not allow a second commercial usage on the property. We've been asked to decide whether we agree that the additional catering taking place out of this site represents an additional use, or if it's only a natural extension of the function of the primary use, the restaurant Rita Cantina. I think that given the volume of the food leaving the site and the several catering trucks working from there does represent the presence of a second business. I think that it's obvious with the different menus and addressing different needs within the community, it represents a usage that would not be approved under the current situation. So they were cited. The restaurant was cited by the building department, and the decision was made by the chief building inspector. The applicant suggested there along the way that what they were doing might be considered typical compared to other restaurants, but comparable examples were not cited and none were brought forward by anyone else here. I'm going to go along exactly with my fellow board members. I think that there was a carefully considered decision on the part of the chief building inspector, and all the evidence on the site and what we see going on here, comparing it to previous activity levels, would indicate to me that she made the right decision. So I'm going to support the building inspector in her decision.
Thank you. Joe?
Well, I'm going to support my fellow board members' comments and attempt not to repeat them. I think Ann Glennon said it best when she said, based in response to the chairman's question, based on her 30 years of experience, she had never seen anything like this. That is, multiple businesses being operated on the same location. To me, though, some of this does come down to semantics, or at least the applicant was playing with the semantics of what does catering mean and what's the threshold for catering. Certainly, I can't say on these facts that the catering being conducted out of Rita's Kitchens was an accessory activity or an accessory use. I think we should be clear that catering can be an accessory use of a restaurant, but you have to examine what the word and the concept accessory means. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines it as an object or device that is not essential in itself, but adds to the beauty, convenience, or effectiveness of something else. Accepted synonyms are secondary, lesser importance, subordinate. Much like a pool house or a shed is an accessory structure, you still need the principal structure. Accessory has also been defined as contributing to or aiding an activity or process in a minor way, with accepted synonyms being to be subsidiary to be supplementary to augment, or to be incidental to, but not to be primary or principal. To add one other thing, this is not, as urged by the applicant, a case involving takeout by Uber Eats. I think that insults our intelligence. There is nothing subordinate to or supplementary to the way these two businesses were being conducted vis-a-vis Rita's. They weren't augmenting Rita's business. They were using Rita's Kitchens to support two separate business lines. In closing, to be clear, we're not prohibiting takeout or catering, but it must fit within the definition of an accessory use.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree. I think this is a black and white decision. Code says 2 uses. There were clearly 3 uses. 2 companies are running out of that. Whether it's there are other issues that I think we can be concerned about in future decisions too, whether or not, and this is a question I had, was, how many catering business under even one name is allowable, if you're accessory uses, but the code is clear. The code is clear on that. It troubles me that the applicant, when they purchased the property, didn't knowingly, I believe knowingly, did not even go to the town for to seek approval, to seek advice. They just, basically went ahead and do this, and now they're challenging it and trying to, as you said, bend the law a little bit. Very simple case. The building inspector as well testified that in the 30 years she's been in the building department, the town has never ever approved something similar to this. So that I uphold the building inspector's determination on this.
I just have one more comment. I know we talked about the multiple business structure that they could apply for, the complex, but even aside from that, they can go to the planning board and planning
That's
department
correct.
and request an additional use also.
In this case, it would have required a variance.
Well,
Yeah.
right, but there were other, that's yet another methodology
That's
that
correct.
the town board has accommodated in the code.
Prescient once again.
Once again, I love that
Word
word.
of the night. Thank you. At this point, we're going to go into other decisions. Laura, you are dismissed. Laura has to go, and I think we kind of helped you out by getting through these decisions, and thank you for being here. And other decisions is Dan and Julie Resnick at 72 Shore Road, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-107-1-22, and it's minor changes to building plans. Tyler?
Yes, so this was something that came in there, according to what Brian wrote the memo on this. He compared the two sets of plans, the original approved plans and the most recent ones that were submitted. Compare the two sets. They appear to be consistent with the originally approved plans. There's some minor reconfigurations of the floor spaces, but the actual layout, the outside of the layout is the same. Just minor changes to the inside of those plans. The pyramid variance was also consistent with what the board had in their determinations. There's no increase in nonconformity. It's at the same elevation, same height, same pyramid variance. So our suggestion was to move forward with a modification, hopefully without a public hearing, in order to move this along and get it done sooner. Brian did point out that the plans that they submitted weren't to scale, and asked that if the board wants a 2-scale set submitted to the board, we have we have them. They just weren't to the scale that was listed on the paper. But other than that, it looks fairly straightforward. This is something that the board would have modified, years ago without a public hearing. So that's what we're suggesting now.
Board members, I'm in favor of approving minor changes, providing it's not, it doesn't increase a variance or require. I'm comfortable with doing that on this bench.
Oh, I thought that we stopped doing that
Well,
because there was a legal.
The reason I believe that it was stopped is because there was one case where, as Marine Boulevard, where it came to modification and the zoning board denied the modification on the spot. I think I believe the zoning board was out of bounds. I think the zoning board should not deny. I think we should refer it to a hearing in that case. So that might have been the decision why.
Oh, because
But
there's a lack
for
of
30 some
public
years or
record.
whatever, this town has been making decisions. And I think that if we stay within the certain parameters, I think we're safe in doing that.
Does council agree with that? Because it was one of our former councils that
Correct.
changed that process, and I
And-
thought it was due to a
Yeah, and
piece of town
but there
code
was
that
also many
didn't
former
exist.
councils that did agree with that. With that,
Yeah, we did discuss this earlier today, and I do agree with Roy on this, that it does appear that if for some reason you're going to deny it or it's wavering, I do believe it should go back for public hearing, so we have a formal record, and if an Article 78 is filed, then we have the proper means of handling that. If it's something that's going to just be, a minor change, as Roy was saying in this case, or he believes it's a minor change, I do believe that the board can make that decision without going back to a public hearing when it's really an immaterial aspect of the application itself. But again, it's up to you guys how you guys feel comfortable and how you want to proceed on it.
Well, in the past, if they were asking for more than what was originally requested, then you would go to public hearing. But if it was less than what was already granted, we just did it administratively. In
essentially,
the
yeah.
office, and we put it on the work session just to tell the board what was happening. But if it was a minor change like this, I agree. I don't see any reason why it has to
Right.
go to
Yeah, I
public
agree.
hearing.
I'm sorry, is this a lesser thing? Yep, change.
It's no greater nor lesser. It's just a change in building plans, really. There's some changes in the interior of the building, but that doesn't
No
affect what the
changes
board.
in any of the numbers.
Yeah, none of the numbers.
So it's not
changed.
bigger than what the board,
Yeah, the severity of the
approved.
variances didn't get any greater.
okay,
Okay.
that's the point.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for me, if it's not been relocated or reconfigured in this
Right.
case here, and that's the case here, then I'm not uncomfortable with moving forward with
Yeah,
approval.
I agree.
I
If-
agree.
If in fact, though, this building had been moved 3 feet one way or another, it might have brought about a different decision because we have to. have to take-
I will say, though, in the past, there were decisions that the board also looked at having no greater impact on the site,
Mhm.
whether it was
Yeah.
closer or not. So,
yeah.
as
Things
long
that
as
may
we
have.
stay within those parameters, and if we're not comfortable with it, again, we should stay within the parameters of saying, well, then we recommend it going back to hearing. That's just
agree.
simple.
Yeah.
So
Right,
do we
just
need
keep
a
it simple.
motion?
I don't know.
No,
Do
I
we
think,
need a
I think
motion?
we.
Well,
we
we're
up and-
approving a modification.
I think.
Well,
if
it would
we-
have to get written up and then the board would.
Right, then you'd approve the
Approve the
modification.
Proceed as a modification, come back to us as a modification.
So it would be a resolution amending
That's correct.
the
Right.
determination. Okay.
Everybody agree with that?
I'm very
I concur.
agreeable to that.
In this case.
Next is Carolyn Purcell Smith and Michael Smith at 22 Robbins Way in Springs. Request to remove the Suffolk Tax Map number 300-103-6-19. The request to remove the requirement that the driveway be composed of quartz gravel as required by the condition H4F in the exhaust August 1st, 2019 determination. Tyler?
The board
read this.
received a memo on this, which I can pull up if you'd like.
Yeah, I
read the memo.
Which is
I think so.
requesting
Well, you should put it
that
up
the
anyway. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
condition of quartz gravel be removed. That when they were doing the work, Bluestone was put down. We went to do an inspection for a CO, found that, and it doesn't comply with what the board had required in the determination. So they're requesting that the board remove the condition for quartz gravel and allow the Bluestone that's there to remain.
What's the downside to allowing Bluestone to
That's
remain?
exactly
I mean, the board has a long history of requiring quartz gravel. It's there's less issues with as far as dust for one, compaction. And of course, every driveway compacts. But as far as permeability is concerned, the board has generally required quartz gravel to try and be as pervious as possible.
But-
If,
but
the
is it-
runoff coefficient is still obviously greater than wooded areas or even lawn. But that's the board's history with it.
I
So
guess
is the
my
quartz
question is it
Part of the planning
pervious?
Department's recommendations typically?
Right, as part of the planning department's
Yeah.
recommendations. How pervious it is, I'm not certain. But part of the issue is a lot of times they'll use like oil and stone, which makes it significantly less pervious. Which is, I think, why the board a lot of times, or most of the time, I should say, requires quartz gravel. So ultimately, I think changing it in this case, the board would have to consider if they even want to have that condition be something they use all in the future, at least consistently. Maybe depending on certain situations, you ask for it. Yeah, that's ultimately the question at this point.
So are you saying basically we should make the condition that the driveway be made of pervious material?
Well, that'd be up for the board to decide. Our recommendation currently is quartz gravel.
Right,
Well, we
so
have-
this is
So
what the
we-
planning
within wetland
department is
jurisdiction.
recommending.
Right.
So I don't even
What
know
we
why
have-
we're
what we
questioning
have
this.
here
So how
is-
did it become Bluestone? I'm sorry. I did. read the
I think
memo.
it was just a mistake as they were doing construction.
Well, then other neighbors in the neighborhood have it and
Yeah.
yeah.
They've seen
that
it,
they
they saw in
wanted
the
to do.
neighborhood, they didn't think it was an issue.
Well,
So,
if I could just say one thing. I wasn't on the board at the time this decision was made, but this project was granted an NRSP and 7 variances. And part of the covenants and restrictions, one of them was, because I read this whole decision, one of them was the driveway shall be composed of only a clean, local, water pervious quartz gravel. And there are other conditions that were to be put into a covenant and restriction. It was also a 3-2 vote, so this was board put a lot of time and effort into making this determination. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Everybody agreed with this. I'm thinking about the other one. Okay, so in terms of, I think I would stand behind, myself personally, I would stand behind the condition that was put into the determination and not change it. That's how I feel about it. I don't know how anybody else feels. I think I stand by the board's determination.
Mike,
I agree.
I think on the surface, it seems like one color stone or one type stone versus another, but what we don't know is how much consideration went into this in making that decision. One's an igneous stone, one's a metamorphic stone. The metamorphic stone over compaction break down more, become more of a silt, become less pervious. Is that part of the decision making? I don't know if that's how they got to that or if it was over some other reasons. But on the surface, this doesn't seem like a big ask. But on the other hand, are we opening up a door for other people to say, well, we're going to do different color stones, different kinds of materials, because after all, it's just another stone. If the original decision was based on the fact that the igneous material is not going to break down as quickly as other material, then that's probably, I'll go along with my fellow board members and say, maybe we have to respect that. We have to respect the fact that there's a reason why people have put enough thought into this to specify the quartz gravel.
Yeah, ultimately, that's the purpose, is that it remains more pervious over time than other alternatives. And you don't use oil and stone when you're doing quartz gravel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And also, it just looks like their letter actually says, we have seen this in other driveways in our neighborhood. So that really was the thought process. It's not like they looked at it like, well, what would be a better
Well, they didn't look
for the
at it.
environment? They just looked at it in an aesthetic way instead of what's maybe environmentally
But
more
in the
protection.
determination
Make
with
a
all those
condition that
variants,
they
it was
can't
clear
add
what
to
the
it.
driveway was supposed to be.
well, I mean, any addition to the driveway certainly would have to come in front of the board. I think almost the whole property is within 150 feet of the wetlands, so they'd have to come to you either way.
No, I meant sometimes people replenish their driveway with more stone.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
All right, well, I'm gonna
Yeah.
make a determinant, for me, I'm gonna vote that we, I stand by the
I feel the
board's
same way.
decision.
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
I
think
feel
it's a
that way too.
condition It's on the determination. I think it should have been adhered to.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you.
Thank you. We go now into extensions of time. We have Seabass Acquisitions at LLC at 63 Shipwreck Drive in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map Number 152-2-8.33 and 8.34, and that's the extension of a 2015 approval.
So this was an approval to construct a 6,829 square foot residence and 1,091 square feet attached garage, pool decking, porches, driveway, and other appurtenances, an IA sanitary system within jurisdiction of wetlands and beach vegetation. There's the board granted an extension time on this on last year. We didn't have any issues with it then. The property's in the same condition. We don't have any concerns with this.
I agree. Anybody else?
No, I'm fine.
2015? No, I'm okay with the extension.
Is this the
time.
first extension?
No.
No, they had one. I know they had one at least last year.
Yeah.
When was the
Well, it would have started around 2019 that they needed extensions, right?
21? They would have needed their first extension.
21, and they
Last year
did,
would have been their
and they
first one.
did.
This wasn't.
And you guys go out and look at that.
Yes.
So, okay. All right. I'm okay with it.
Okay, next we have Adelaide DeManil at 43
Okay, do we need a motion for that one too?
For the extension of time?
Or do we only do it when it's written
No,
up?
I think it's when it's written,
When
right,
it's written
Tyler?
up?
We're saying okay to the
Oh,
extension?
We're saying it's okay to
going be
proceed.
Typed up.
I was actually going to file them tomorrow. I was going to give them to Laura to file. So if you want to just go ahead and do the quick vote to proceed on them, we'll just write up the extension document. It's pretty short.
Okay. So we'll make a motion.
Motion.
I make a motion in the matter of Seabass Acquisitions LLC, 63 Shipwreck Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 152-02-8.33 8.33 and 8.34 to permit an extension of the board's previous approval, which would be
For
a second
year.
extension.
It's a 1-year extension.
Yeah, 1-year extension.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Next, we have Adelaide D. Manil at 43 Mile Hill Road, at East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-72-1-2, and that's the extension of time of a 2012 approval, which is 10 years old.
So this was to construct an 8,402 square foot residence, a bunch of associated structures. There was a variance granted to be 153 feet from wetlands, where 200 feet is required for the sanitary system. The sanitary and the approval was the old style, so they would have to update it when they go before going for a permit to the new IA system. Shouldn't really be a big issue, but it'd have to be taken care of prior to a building permit. But we didn't have any concerns with the extension of time. They did get one last year, so they have been keeping up with it. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
I'm wondering
Sorry,
if,
it's for new sanitation system?
The variance was for the sanitary system, but it was the old system. They
Right,
didn't have a new
right.
IA,
Okay,
so they
so that would
have
have
to
to be
design
updated.
one. And may have to come to the board to have the plans updated, but that shouldn't be I don't think, a huge issue,
And they haven't even begun the process?
not to my knowledge. They've done a little bit of clearing on the property, just I think probably to show it for sale, but we were there last week. It's in pretty good condition.
I mean, I'm okay doing it now, but again, this board, we initiated a 10-year policy to review. I think that if we, maybe approve it this time, but maybe the next extension of time, then maybe we should have the wetlands reassessed.
Absolutely.
So
See if
you
there
want
are
to say it's a
environmental-
final extension?
Yeah, for now, yeah, and
Can we say- yeah, can
to
we
see if the
say it's-
wetlands have changed or anything like that.
See if
I mean,
there are any
2012, a lot
environmental
has happened
changes.
since
Yes,
2012. We
exactly.
had Hurricane Sandy
Mhm.
after that.
You see if it's
Okay.
still the same environmental conditions.
Got that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we need a motion on that. one,
Everybody
too.
agree?
Need a motion.
Need a motion.
One final-
I'll make a motion for Adelaide D. Manil at 43 Mile Hill Road, East Hampton, Suffolk tax map number 300-72-1-2 to approve the extension of time with the condition that the next time they come before us, the wetlands need to be reassessed.
I'll second. Oh,
Okay.
okay. I'll concur.
I concur.
Okay,
I concur.
Did I concur? I concur.
You seconded.
I
with that.
You seconded.
I seconded,
You got
okay.
the second.
next we have the minutes approval for September 27, 2022.
Okay, now I didn't get to Laura on it. There was one teensy thing, but correct me if I'm wrong. On the hearings last week, I think it was Young. Wasn't there one person in the audience that spoke here in person against an application? It might have been the Bratch's application. Or am I wrong? She just put that there was a call-in, the 2 call-ins, and there was 1 call-in. I believe the other person was here, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't
I'd
have
have
my
to look at
notes.
my
But
notes.
anyway, they called, there was an opposition.
why don't we-
Doesn't matter whether they were.
Why don't
here
we
on the
just put
phone.
it over to next
Yeah,
meeting?
we can put it off till,
You can double check that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not important that, the person's name was there and they voiced their opposition.
so we'll table that till next week.
I can't remember.
Resolutions, we have Peter and Ann Joyce at 93 South Euclid, Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-49-1-13.3. Brief
Right.
description.
There she is.
Yep. So this application was to construct an outdoor storage yard with the 3 on-site parking spaces and then 7 spaces located in the right of way. They were going to construct an additional sidewalk, additional fencing on the cleared parcel. We did specify in this decision that they needed to maintain the garden use if this was approved, which it was approved by a vote from 3 to 1. And that in addition, we had support from the planning board that found that the review and analysis provided by the town's consulting engineer was satisfactory in addressing any site issues related to drainage, sidewalk connectivity, and the distancing of the parking spaces.
Okay, whose case was this? Terry?
Terry.
No.
Oh.
Ed.
Oh, it was mine? Okay. Then in the case of Peter and Ann Joyce, 93 South U, well, hold on a minute. I wasn't here for the decision.
I'll make a motion.
But you know, I know I'm saying, I don't mind making the motion, but is it, if I
doesn't
was,
matter.
it doesn't matter? Okay. Then in the case of Peter and Ann Joyce, 93 South Euclid in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-049-01-13.3. I'd like to make a motion to accept this determination as written.
I'll second that.
I concur.
I concur as well. Next, we have James Walsh at 239 East Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-13-3-32.
This was an application to construct a smaller swimming pool, 600 square feet, swimming pool, the pool fence, the pool equipment, an additional pool patio, and the 64 square foot spa with removing, I believe they were going to move the outdoor shower on this one. This was approved by 4 of the members. We did believe that their structures were far enough upland, that they were located not next to any natural resources, diminishing any, any of the grade that was there as well. The only person that did not vote on this was, again, Mr. Johan, who was not there at the time.
Okay, Terry, you want to make a motion?
So for the application of James Walsh at 239 East Lake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-013-03-32, I make a motion to approve the determination as written.
I'll second it.
I concur.
Concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Next, we have Stephen Germain at 75 Water's Edge in Spring, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-83-7-10.
And this was actually an in-kind replacement to reconstruct the bulkhead of the parcel, close above the beaches and the tidal surfaces. The board didn't see anything that was out of place or different really than what was already there. As such, we had 4 concurring board members, with Mr. Johan being absent on that day as well.
In the matter of the application of Stephen Germain, 75 Water's Edge in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-83-7-10, I make a motion to approve the determination as written.
Second.
Concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you, and we'll ask for the vice chair to close the meeting and allow our council the long drive home.
Not tonight.
Time, 7:52.
You're helping me out. Okay, thank you. Therefore, I'd like to make a
53 now.
I'd like to make a motion to close the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals work session for October 11th, 2022 at 8:53 p.m.
7:53.
Oh, 7:53. I just had help with it and I still didn't get it right. 7:53 p.m. Thank you.
I'll second that.
I concur.
Concur as well. Thank you, everyone.